welcome to the Violent Nexus Comics YouTube channel. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy the video.
This is the story of the Stitch in Time. The clock tower of Steeping on the Hill struck 4, a sound that usually heralded the clinking of china and the polite applause of spoons, but today the air hung heavy and silent. The cobblestone streets, usually bustling with walking terrines and skipping saucers, were coated in a thin, unnatural frost that dulled the vibrant patterns of the ceramic citizens. High above the valley, the sun sat fixed in the sky, a pale yolk refusing to dip below the horizon, bathing the town in a stagnant, sickly twilight that offered no warmth. A single cracked teacup shivered on a park bench, its floral paint chipping away as the cold seeped into its porcelain bones, whispering, I can't feel my handle." The great lukewarm had settled deep into the valley's marrow, a creeping lethargy that turned steam into slush and conversation into silence. Inside the workshop of Pippin Patchwork, the air was thick with the smell of wool and panic as the tiny tailor worked his fingers to the bone. "Hold still, Mrs. Potts," Pippin muttered, his oversized spectacles slipping down his nose as he frantically looped thick red yarn around a trembling teapot matriarch. "The cozy armor needs to be tight, or the magic leaks out." The teapot, her spout dripping with condensation, looked at him with fading eyes. "It's no use, Pippin," she whistled weakly, the sound like a dying kettle. "The steep is gone. We are just clay now." Pippin refused to accept the resignation in her voice, his needle clicking rhythmically against the silence of the room. He pulled the knot tight, watching a faint flush of pink return to Mrs. Potts' cheeks, but he knew it was a temporary fix for a terminal problem. "Don't say that," he snapped, though his voice wavered with fear. "I can stitch, I can knit, I can patch, but I can't restart the fire if the sun refuses to set." He moved to the window, pushing aside heavy velvet drapes to glare at the stubborn, unmoving sun suspended in the sky. The light wasn't just still. It was tangled, caught in shimmering, almost invisible threads that stretched up into the clouds like the rigging of a ghost ship. He knew the legends, the nursery rhymes whispered to young Demitasses before they were shelved for the night, stories of a creature that fed on momentum and spun traps of delay. "The procrastination spider," Pippin whispered, the name tasting like stale dust on his tongue. "It's caught the day itself." He turned from the window, his gaze landing on a glass case in the center of the room where the thimble of bravery sat on a velvet cushion. It didn't look like much, just a battered piece of brass, but as he stared at it, a sudden, overwhelming question burned in his chest. What happens if I just go look? It wasn't courage that moved his feet. It was a desperate, itching curiosity. Preparation was a frantic blur of motion, Pippin tossing supplies into a satchel made of old handkerchiefs. He strapped the golden needle to his back, the polished point gleaming like a beacon of industry against the gloom. "I need a mount," he muttered, rushing out the back door into the garden where the giant vegetation grew. There, munching slowly on a mint leaf, was Barnaby, the sugar cube snail. "Barnaby, old boy," Pippin said, patting the snail's glistening, crystalline shell, "we have a schedule to keep, which means you'll have to move faster than a geological epoch." Barnaby blinked his eye stalk slowly, leaving a sticky, caramel-colored trail that shimmered with adhesive potential. The outskirts of Steeping on the Hill gave way to the surreal geography of the abstract Alps, where the ground was littered with half-formed ideas and discarded drafts. They stood at the base of the staircase of unfinished thoughts, a spiraling construct of floating marble steps that didn't quite connect, hanging suspended in the violet. "Mist, up we go," Pippin commanded, climbing onto Barnaby's shell. The snail surged forward at a whopping 2 inches per second, but as they hit the vertical incline, the caramel trail hardened instantly, gluing them securely to the impossible geometry. "Don't look down," Pippin advised himself, clutching the reins, "and definitely don't. Think about whether you left the stove on." As they ascended, the air grew thinner and filled with the whispering voices of abandoned projects, novels never written, paintings never painted, apologies never sent. The voices were a low, hypnotic hum that tugged at Pippin's eyelids. "Just a little rest," the wind seemed to murmur. "Why save the world today?" Pippin shook his head violently, the thimble of bravery on his finger pulsing with a sharp heat that jolted him awake. "Not today." He shouted into the void, driving the golden needle into the stone step to anchor them as a gust of lethargy threatened to blow them off the edge. Barnaby groaned, his sugar shell vibrating. They reached a plateau halfway to the sky, a serene garden where the mist parted to reveal the well of I'll Do It Tomorrow. The water was perfectly still, reflecting not the sky, but the viewer's deepest desire for comfort. Pippin made the mistake of glancing over the rim. He didn't see water. He saw a 4-poster bed made of marshmallow clouds, a stack of unread comic books, and a mug of hot cocoa that never went cold. His grip on the reins loosened. His eyes glazed over. It looks so soft, he mumbled, his body swaying toward the water's edge. Maybe the sun likes being stuck. Maybe I should just lie down for 5 minutes. Pippin's knees buckled, and he began to slide toward the lip of the well, the seductive lullaby of procrastination drowning out the urgency of the freezing village below. But as his hand brushed the cold stone, the thimble of bravery snagged on the rough texture. It didn't offer strength. It offered a question. I wonder what happens to the cocoa if you never drink it. The thought pierced his mind. I wonder if the bed is actually full of bedbugs. The sudden spike of curiosity shattered the trance. Pippin gasped, scrambling back from the edge, his heart hammering. Nice try. He yelled at the water. I'm too nosy to nap. He kicked Barnaby's shell, and the snail lurched forward, leaving the trap behind. The staircase ended abruptly, dissolving into the great web itself. The sky was no longer air but a sticky, translucent tapestry of threads that held the sun in a chokehold. The heat here was strange, stagnant, and suffocating, like a room that had been closed up for centuries. Pippin dismounted, his boots sticking slightly to the cloud floor. We're here, he whispered, drawing the golden needle from his back like King Arthur drawing Excalibur. The vibration of the trapped sun hummed through his boots, a low frequency of distress. Suddenly, the threads above them twitched, dust rained down gray, fibrous dust that smelled of old attics. From the center of the solar prison, the procrastination spider descended. It was a nightmare of geometry and neglect, its legs churning like the gears of a broken clock, its multiple eyes blinking in a slow, rhythmic sequence that made Pippin feel like he was moving underwater. Why Ruush? The spider hissed, the voice sounding like tearing paper. The Suan needs a nap on Su Diyu. It didn't strike fast. It moved with terrifying inevitability, shooting a strand of gray web meant to entangle Pippin in a cocoon of later. Pippin dove, rolling across the sticky clouds, the web missing him by inches. I don't have time for later. Pippin screamed, charging not at the beast, but at the web holding the sun. He swung the golden needle, the sharp tip slicing through a thick cable of procrastination. The strands snapped with the sound of a violin string breaking, and the spider shrieked a sound of pure annoyance rather than pain. Ruwooed little gnat. It bellowed, moving faster now, annoyed into action. It swiped a massive, yarn-covered leg at Pippin, sending him tumbling toward the edge of the cloud layer. He barely caught himself on a tuft of condensed vapor, his legs dangling over the empty drop. Pippin scrambled back up, but the spider was looming over him, raising its thorax to bury him in a deluge of delay. Wait, Pippin said, holding up a hand. The spider paused, confused by the command. Wait. It hissed. Yes. Pippin improvised, his mind racing. If you eat me now, you'll have to clean up the bones. Isn't that a lot of work? Why not eat me tomorrow? The spider hesitated, its eyes dimming as it considered the appealing logic of putting off the effort. Tomorrow sounds nice, it drooled, its legs relaxing, less chewing. It was the opening Pippin needed. While the beast pondered the luxury of procrastination, Pippin whistled for Barnaby. The sugar cube snail, having slowly flanked the monster, launched himself, gravity aiding his fall onto the spider's back, trailing a thick, heavy line of caramel. Pippin leaped, grabbing the caramel line and using the momentum to swing around the spider's legs, binding them together with the creature's own inertia. Sorry. Pippin yelled as he tightened the knot. I'm a tailor. I knit things together. The spider struggled, but the caramel hardened instantly in the high-altitude cold, cementing the tangled yarn legs into a single, immobile lump. With the guardian neutralized, Pippin turned his attention to the grand knot, the central tangle of web holding the sun in place. He climbed the solidified caramel web, reaching the burning center. The heat was returning, radiating off the sun's surface. With a roar of exertion, Pippin thrust the golden needle into the heart of the knot and pried. "Set," he commanded. "Go down. The day is done." The knot unraveled with a blinding flash of golden light. The web disintegrated into harmless dust, and gravity finally reclaimed its prize. The sun, heavy and red, began to sink rapidly toward the horizon. The sudden descent of the sun created a rush of wind that knocked Pippin backward, but he landed softly on Barnaby's shell as they slid down the dissolving staircase of unfinished thoughts. Below them, steeping on the hill, was transforming. As the orange glow of sunset washed over the valley, the frost evaporated in instant clouds of steam. The silence broke. A cheer went up, a cacophony of whistling kettles, clinking spoons, and rattling saucers. The great lukewarm was broken. The fire in the hearths could finally rise, and the magic of the steep returned to the porcelain veins of the city. Pippin and Barnaby touched down in the town square just as the final sliver of sun disappeared, ushering in a proper star-filled night. Mrs. Potts ran forward, waddled her ceramic cheeks rosy with heat. "You did it, Pippin," she whistled, steam puffing happily from her spout. "I feel like brewing Earl Grey." Pippin slid off his snail, exhausted, his patchwork coat singed and dusty. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the thimble of bravery, now dull and ordinary on his finger. "I didn't do much," he yawned, patting Barnaby's sticky shell. "I just didn't wait." He looked at his workshop. The lights were on. There was work to do, but for the first time in his life, Pippin smiled and thought, "Maybe I'll clean the shop tomorrow." Narrative conclusion page. The camera pulls back from the window of Pippin's shop, where a closed sign is finally flipped outward. The village of Steeping on the Hill glows with the warm, inviting light of 1,000 fireplaces. In the distance, on the highest peak, the procrastination spider can be seen, still tied up in caramel. Fast asleep and perfectly content to be stuck. The world was safe, the tea was hot, and everything was exactly as it should be, happening in its own time. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and until next time, stay super.